It lies somewhere between the pit of your stomach, your racing heart, and your brain, somehow trying to keep it all together. It's an area we call the adrenaline zone.
Standing on the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, as everybody is saying, I'm going at this velocity, this is happening, parachute coming out, back shield coming out, mobility system deployed, we touch down. I'm watching it in my brain.
I'm retired astronaut Dr. Sandra Magnus.
And I'm retired Navy fighter pilot Admiral Sandy Winnefeld. We're two adrenaline junkies who love spending time with people who are really passionate about pushing their boundaries as far as possible. Many thanks to our sponsor for this episode, Dunkin. Slow-steeped, ultra-smooth Dunkin cold brew should be at the top of any adrenaline seeker's checklist.
Our guest today is Deanna Trujillo, who is the flight director of the NASA Mars rover Perseverance, which landed on the Red Planet on February 18th of last year after a 6.5-month journey. In addition to driving around Mars, Deanna and her team have repeatedly flown Ingenuity, a small helicopter that made the first powered flight on another planet.
Deanna is no stranger to risk, having set out for the U.S. from Colombia at age 17 with only $300 in her pocket and lacking basic English language skills. Through hard work and determination, she earned a degree in aerospace engineering and soon found herself working at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, immersed in building and operating sophisticated rovers for Mars, leading to her current role.
We caught up with Deanna not long after Perseverance landed on Mars.
Deanna, thanks for being with us here today, and it's nice to talk to a fellow aerospace engineer. We want to take you all the way back. Can you talk to us about being that little girl in Colombia that had a dream in her head to come to the United States and become an engineer?
Absolutely. And Sandy, thank you so much for the invitation. And Sandra, the same. I'm so excited to be talking with both of you. To answer your question, so to me, space came into my radar when I was a younger, maybe in between my 8 and my 12 years old age range, because I was living in Colombia. My family was going through a lot of trouble, personal trouble. They were getting divorced. And in addition to that, during the time frame that I was there was a lot of violence happening on the country, particularly on my city. And so we will have conversations with my parents of, we're going to go out there, but if you hear a gunshot, here is the drill. You're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. And I remember my younger brother feeling very, very concerned about it and going into an immediate cry. And so living in the middle of all of that, space for me was my safe place. It was the place where you could look at the stars and think everything just works perfectly up there. I hope to God that someday I can figure how that works, because clearly it doesn't work around me.
So how did you get the courage to act on your dreams? That was a big step to just say, hey, I'm going to go to another country. I'm going to go study there. I don't know the language. How did you generate the motivation and the courage to go do that?
Sandra, a lot of stuff happened in between that instance of when it came into my radar and then having the motivation evolve as time happened. Because first, the motivation occurred when my dad asked me, do you want to go to another country to learn another language? It might be a good opportunity for you. And the moment when that question came in was when I was looking at the women in my family and recognizing that we were in a situation where my great grandma didn't go to school. My grandma dropped from school when she was in 5th grade. My mom dropped off from medical school to help my dad and didn't complete her degree until way later. And so I looked at that, at the track record of the women in my house, and I was like, no, they're all giving up on their dream to serve the other person. If this is going to be the track record for me, this is certainly not it. So when my dad asked me, do you want to go to another country to learn another language? I saw it more as a ticket to have another option that wasn't on my option trade. So it was almost the different, if it's different than this, yes, let's do it. And so I left. And then when I got here, I started to study English, and then, things in between my family got harder in their divorce because it took many, many years. And I started to notice things getting worse for my mom, the situation she having to do, not having now money, not having where she was going to go live. And I realized I can't turn back to my country or to Colombia and go back to that situation, I now need to make sure that everything is fine, not just for me, but for my mom and my grandma, my great grandma. So things evolved from there. I remember very much, Sandra, like sitting down and thinking, I can't, like, why is it that we, in my family, we women are being treated as, second class citizens, and we're not smart, and we're only here to help the partner. I'm smart. I know I'm smart, even though people think I'm not smart. I was thinking that in my head, like, and then I decided, no, I'm going to do something that's hard. I'm going to prove everybody in my family, my uncles and stuff, that we women add value and that we can do something important that matters more than cleaning and doing your dinner and having everything ready. So, anyways, that's where things started to evolve for me to say, what's the hardest thing that a person can do? Which, Sandra, I tip my hat to you. The hardest thing that I said was being an astronaut is the hardest thing a human can do. And then I went in and read a bios of astronauts that are women and see what their careers were like. And a lot of it tries to engineering. So that's how I started to find my route.
So, Deanna, do you feel that if you would have stayed in Colombia, you would have been trapped in that same kind of a system? And really moving to the US was your way to break out of it?
100%. I would have, I think that if I had stayed in Colombia, my expectations would have been limited in a way that I would have probably following on the same pattern, which is unfortunate because I think it's not a matter of you got to leave to become somebody. It's just a matter of, do you know the options that are available? And you can stay for sure, but you just need to know that this is possible. In my situation, I was 17. I didn't even know what was possible. So I had to go figure out what the definition of that word was.
Deanna, you landed in the United States and you started college. Can you tell us a little bit about anybody who helped you out and how you started your college career in the United States?
I love your question because when I got here, I started to study English and I was so nervous. I started first feeling like I was completely out of place because English is my second language, and trying to learn a new language in a new place. There were many, many firsts for me all at the same time. And so I was doing my best, but I did something. The reason why I like your question is because I did something that was, I guess, non-traditional in my case, which was, I'm going to give my best. I'm going to study really hard, but I'm not going to look at my grades. And so I remember, because I didn't want to be disappointed, right? It's like, I'm going to give my best. If I don't do well, why am I going to feel disappointed about my grades? I know I'm giving it all. And so I wouldn't look at my grades, Sandy. And then at one time, I was finishing now my English classes and I needed to see what was going to come next. And I remember this woman, my English teacher, my reading teacher, came to me and said, have you considered taking honor classes? And I'm like, no, why would I? She's like, have you not seen, like, you have really good grades? And I'm like, oh, I don't know what my grades are. And she's like, oh, here's your transcript. You're a 4.0 student. And I'm like, and is that good? Like, I wasn't sure even like if it was like 4 out of 10 points, which is sounded really bad. I remember when she told me that. I don't think that out of her love of her heart, she didn't explain what a 4.0 was, but I do remember going to my house and my dad is like, can you send me your grades? And I'm like, I just found out my grades are really bad. I remember having this conversation. They were so bad. They were 4 out of 10. I'm so sorry. I'm not doing well. And then I went back to her and she explained to me, you should just get in here. And I realized at that point I realized I'm actually smart and I did not know that.
Well, that's really a terrific story. It's learning for learning's sake and the opportunities that it gives you rather than learning to try to get decent grades. That's really a cool story. Where did you actually go to school, Deanna?
So I went to Miami-Dade Community College, which is now Miami-Dade College. So I was there for 2.5 years. I did English. And then after that, I did space science. After that, because of my grades, I was able to get a scholarship from a University of Florida. And then I moved into University of Florida, which it was a lot of fun, but it was a huge transition. I was super scared.
I studied Russian and then worked over in Russia and trained over there for the space station. It's no simple thing to pick up another language and then learn all of the jargon that you need to be successful in whatever field of study you are in. So my hat is off to you because that is not easy.
Thank you.
But how did you then get hooked up with NASA once you were in college and finishing through there?
So absolutely. So you come back into my picture in the most interesting way because this goes back to the astronaut idea. So I get to University of Florida and I'm like, I know what I'm doing. The hardest thing, right? That's what we're going for. And so I get there, and then because I was coming out of community college and I had done the 2 years in community college, then I had to declare my major. And I'm like, I totally know what I'm going to do for sure. And so I get there, and then I had to do this ginormous line waiting to declare my major. And so the line was so long that everybody's sitting on the floor because we're waiting forever. And at some point it hit me like, oh my gosh, I'm alone. English is my second language. What am I thinking? What? Astronaut? Like, what is this? You're crazy. Remember, you're not that smart. Like all of these fears in the longest line that it took forever. And I was going down the worst path of my life because every time I would get closer to the door, I'm thinking, I got 15 more minutes of torturing myself and reminding myself why I'm not supposed to be here. So I literally crossed the door. One of those things where you're like, I'm going to wait until the last minute because maybe something happens. I don't want to walk out of the line before it's too early, but I'm certainly going to walk out. But hopefully, God, just do something if you want me to stay. So I keep going down the line, and then I get to the door, and then there's a little 2 chairs at the coffee table. And I sit on it and I'm like, okay, this is real now. Nothing happened. Time to leave. And I look up and I see this NASA magazine, which I still have. It was a NASA magazine from all the women astronauts. Every single page had your headshot and here's what she did. This is where she went to school. This is what her major was. And this is the spatial launch or the spatial mission that she was in and what she worked on. And I'm like paging through this, like, are you serious? Like, I can't believe this. Like, I read about these women, but now I have a magazine that has them, all of them in the same place. And then, of course, as I'm looking at the magazine, they call me to, like, it's my turn on the line. And I'm like, yes, there's no question about it. Aerospace engineering, it is. And then later on, when I was finishing my bachelor's degree, my last semester, I'm like, okay, well, I had never worked at NASA. I hadn't had an internship in NASA or any of that sort of stuff. And then on my last semester, I just figured, you know what? I'm going to start telling my professors I want to do this. And if they laugh at me, it's my last semester. It's okay. They will not care. I won't see them again. And so I told that to one of my professors, who then pointed me to this program called the NASA Academy, which is a NASA internship. And I applied to it. And lo and behold, I got it. And I ended up going to the NASA Academy, the best summer of my life, where it really showed me, yeah, it is NASA where you want to work. And here's all the different jobs that you can have.
So as I'm listening to your story, Deanna, the thing that keeps coming through to me is just the sheer determination, even though you had some doubt and you were questioning yourself the whole way. I mean, you were just determined to keep going no matter what, and really getting yourself outside of your comfort zone. Where do you think that came from? Your roots in Colombia? Where do you think your determination came from?
Sandra, I think that it came from the fact that at some point when I was here, at some point when I was learning English, things were really rough for me, trying to accept the situation, not only of what my family was and what was happening to my mom and how everything was just crashing and burning on that direction. And then the fear of turning into something like that and thinking that my life can just not amount to what I wanted was what my determination was. It was based on 2 things. One, knowing that I knew I was smart, but nobody else seemed to think that I was, and recognizing that it was important for my family to know that all of those women in my family are smart. They're smart, and so am I. So please don't step over us. And I think that the best way for me to say, please don't step over us, was to come back and say, look how much I did. And this is coming out of the same women that educate me. So if you can respect what I do, maybe you can respect who I am, and so can you respect them.
Dunkin is made for everyone with the determination, the drive, and the guts to do something new or who wants to push their boundaries. It's the fuel for every mission, challenging pursuit, or adventure.
Whether you're embarking on a new journey or whether you're wrapping up your adventure, you know there'll be a Dunkin waiting for you.
And if it's speed you're after, order ahead and it'll be ready when you get there. It's simple. In, out, and on your way. So Deanna, you've been at NASA for 14 years now, and you're no stranger to Mars. You worked for a while on the Curiosity Rover project as a communications engineer. What did you learn with Rover, the Curiosity Rover, that helped you with your current role, a little higher level as the flight director on Perseverance?
I feel like with Curiosity, I learned, and it's related to the same words that Sandra was using. I feel like my determination of wanting to, and you did too, Sandy, which is the learning for the sake of learning, and the determination together were the thing that during the Curiosity mission showed me that I could do whatever was needed wherever I wanted it. And it was insane to get to that level. So I got to the point where every 6 months, I was rotating jobs within the same project, right? So it was like, do telecom, do mission operations, do ground data systems, do this mechanism on the test bed, set up the test bed over here, do surface operations in general. And I'm like, my God. And so I was more learning through all of the aspects of the rover, just for the sake of one, I want to learn, and they're having issues with it. So it was the perfect combination for me. I'm sure we all have seen that. And Sandra, having the fact that you have been working on the space industry and having been an astronaut, you've seen the fact that there is more problems that people can actually answer. And so it was more like, I'm a body with a brain. I can spend my time trying to figure out how to solve that problem, what other people are solving another one. So at some point, I was just solving problems of any kind. And to be specific about your question, Sandy, I remember standing up on mission control and looking at all the signs that are on each console and thinking, I've done something on every single of those consoles. I've solved a problem that many of those consoles have had, and I know a lot about them. So I'm ready to actually see the bigger picture of the spacecraft, and that allowed me to proceed to where I am today.
And that's the fun part of engineering, isn't it? It's just the challenge of solving a complicated problem, right?
It's awesome. It's amazing. It just takes you, I feel like it takes you to the next level, because it's not about you. It's not about if you're going to do it first. It's not if you're going to answer the question first. It's like, nobody knows how to do this. So we need to bring our best game and like whiteboard the bejesus out of this problem right now, and then simulate it so we can have a better shot at understanding it.
So in that context, can you talk about the overall mission of Perseverance and where you're going with that now as a team?
Yeah, so we done a lot of first with Perseverance, as you mentioned at the beginning, right? We did first time landing with the eyes open, taking images and mapping it to know exactly how to course correct as we're coming through 20,000 kilometers per hour on Mars. In addition to that, bringing up the instrument MOXIE that creates oxygen for the first time on the surface of Mars, doing the helicopter, and then the most complicated mechanical system that we have flown, which is the assembly caching, the adapter caching system, which is the little tubes that are going to pick up the sample. The ACA, I just need to remember how the acronym goes. But where we are now is this week, which is amazing. On Monday, we did our first flight with Ingenuity. And now we just also did our second flight with Ingenuity the same week. And we did MOXIE. So where we are with the team right now is, I think that we are walking on clouds, to be honest. I feel like I look at what we have done in such a short period of time, in 2 months or so, 2 months and some days. And we done all the catalog that we brought in. We pretty much put it out there immediately. And there's more to come. There's more things that we need to do, because the mission is, the goal is to find if there was biosignatures that demonstrate that there was life on Mars at some point in the past. So we now need to get to that task. Dry drive, let's go look for that sample, have science know where we want to go, and start doing that type of science.
So, Deanna, I have to ask you, you have to take our listeners to the day of the landing. I'm used to going from 150 miles an hour to zero in 3 seconds. I can't imagine going from 20,000 miles an hour to zero in 7 minutes. Your heart must have been pounding during that 7 minutes of suspense while you waited to hear back from the rover that it had landed. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Sandy, your question is hilarious because I remember, so the night before, I was setting up because it turns out that while this is happening on Mars, of course, we're broadcasting all of it. And I had the pleasure and the honor to actually broadcast it in Spanish. So Swati was doing it in English. I was doing it in Spanish. So we're both on camera while we're recounting everything that we're hearing and seeing happening with the rover. But the night before, unfortunately, because of COVID, the hallways are empty. There's nobody there. And you're wondering, like, is this really happening tomorrow? Like, where is everybody? Where are my peers? Curiosity, we will be all cheering in the office, nobody going to sleep. Today, not so much, is what I remember the night before. And then we get into it, and landing really happened at 12:50 p.m. Pacific time. So the whole morning, I'm like, what am I doing? Like drinking too much coffee, walking around like a crazy person around the table, like it's coming. And then I sit and we start with the show. We start with the broadcasting. We did a lot of fantastic things for the Hispanic and Latinx community. And then I think it was 12:34 when we really get into recounting what we're seeing or hearing on the telemetry, seeing and hearing. And then, so I'm looking down because I'm looking at telemetry and hearing the team, and it's just crazy. I think that one of the things that I wasn't scared. My heart wasn't pounding I hope this work. To be honest, it was the other direction. It was we did everything. Nothing was left on the table. There is not a single question in my mind of something that we haven't done. So this is going to work. And if it doesn't work, well, Faith didn't want it to work. So it's not going to work, but it's not because we didn't do it right, is because we did everything. So I'm not going to worry about it. So I remember listening. And the thing that I remember the most is when we're coming through and the heat shield separates. And I love this part. And it's a very small detail, but it's just stuck with me, is the heat shield separates and telecom gets on the line and said, I see the heat shield coming through. And I remember this was I see the heat shield coming through. This is the telecom guy. He's not seeing anything. And we're also going really fast. But it was so cool. Like, this is the engineering part of it, right? Really what he was saying was, I am tracking the signal strength from the radio. The heat shield just crossed that signal strength. I lost signal strength, but I know what it is. I know what the vehicle needs to be doing so well that I know what it is. And that's why I'm reporting that I see the heat shield going by, which is freaking crazy. Like, how well can you know something that just losing the strength of your telecom radio tells you exactly what physically is happening?
Did it drive you crazy knowing that what you were really listening to actually happened a few minutes ago because of the gap in the time it takes the communications to travel? Or did you just sort of factor that out?
I feel like mentally I was factoring that out. I think that mentally we were just, because we went through like all the anomaly procedures, the loss of signal procedures, everything, right? Because we were ready. If we hear this other thing, here's all the procedures we're going to go, and this is what we're going to do. So it felt to me like, that's a really good question. You know how I felt? I felt like I was actually standing on the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, and I was watching it. Because I could see it on my head. Like, as everybody's saying, I'm going at this velocity, this is happening, parachute coming out, back shield coming out, like mobility system deployed, we touched down. I'm watching it in my brain. Does that make any sense? Because I've seen all of this testing, and it's just awesome. And then watching the imaging that we took later on, the videos came out, and watching all of that, I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking it was happening. And so, yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Deanna, can you tell us a little bit about what your role of flight director is and what you're responsible for?
So I love flight director job. Is like, I could not have asked for a most amazing role that brings all my strengths together. I'm the type of person that I walk into a room for like 2 minutes or 5 minutes, I guess, and you pull me out of the room, and then you can ask me, what did you see? And I probably can describe most of the stuff that I saw in the room. I don't know where I got that from, And I can tell you what people were wearing in some cases, right? So I have very much attention to detail and big picture at the same time very quickly. And that with that personal skill that I have with my knowledge on the spacecraft combined makes, in my opinion, a really good package for flight director because I love it. Like I go in there, I know what activities we're going to do on the spacecraft. I've seen those those activities on the spacecraft because I had the pleasure to bring in as the deputy face lead for the robotic arm a lot of the work that we did on the clean room to assemble that part of the vehicle, but then also do vehicle system level tests in the clean room where we make the vehicle do what it was supposed to do on Mars, but on Earth, and we're watching it across the window. And so when I walk into my flight director tactical job and I look at the activities, I'm like, I've seen these things. I know what's going to happen and I know what to expect and I understand the commanding. And then now the waiting of, okay, MRO, Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter is going to bring out the data. Odyssey is going to bring out the data. It's going to hit ground and we're going to unpack it and read it and analyze it like we have done for the last many, many years of every single data review of every single line of the spacecraft. And the way that I see it is not only I know in my head how it's supposed to be behaving, I love also to see the data. Maybe I'm super geeky, but I feel like I'm reading somebody's diary. You know, I'm like, oh, I'm reading the diary of what the baby that we have on Mars just did. And I can read it verbatim. In some cases, it's very explicit. And it's great. It's like, yep, I see you. You drove. You did this. You took a picture. This is amazing. And that now, on top of all of that, put in the human aspect of it, right? Where you have a team of people that are the best of the best, right? There's nobody better at that chair. That person knows that box in and out. It knows immediately as soon as you see something wrong that it is wrong. And also as soon as you see it, it's expected. That 3.567958 number is like, yeah, that's what I was looking for, right? Like there's no better person to know that. And that person is sitting on console and me as their flight director, their lead to get us through the analysis of the downlink data that we just received. And if we had an anomaly, my job also will be to lead us through the resolution of that anomaly in concurrence, of course, working together with project management and the anomaly response team if it goes on that direction. But otherwise, it's just the best job.
From fighter pilots to base jumpers to neurosurgeons.
Or, the rest of us 9-to-5 hustlers.
Everyone needs a bold morning jumpstart or a robust afternoon pick-me-up from a slow-steeped Dunkin cold brew.
Whether looking straight down the face of a 1,000-foot cliff or staring wide-eyed into a baffling computer spreadsheet, we all need the same thing.
So whatever your pursuit, start with a Dunkin cold brew. So Deanna, NASA's landed several rovers on Mars, as you know, and everyone gets a little bit better. But on this one, boy, we're running out of room on the paper for all the new things that Perseverance has done. But one of the most cool ones, of course, and you alluded to this earlier, was flying a helicopter successfully for the first time on a different planet. And, we hear a lot about that in the media, about how hard it is to fly a helicopter in thin air and all that. But one of the most interesting things is you had some last-minute issues. Can you talk to us about that and how you went about fixing them?
Yeah, so there's a few things about the helicopter that were very interesting to me. I'm going to back out a second here, which is the drop day. The drop day wasn't an anomaly, but the drop day, I don't think people realize how complicated that is. And so if you don't mind me explaining a little bit of that, so the way that this works, if you look at the timeline, the helicopter itself, first you need to blow the launch log bolt so that it can actually now have the ability to move. Then the next day extends 2 of the legs, it goes vertical. Then the next day extends the other 2 legs, so it's a total of 4 legs. But then it hangs from the belly of the rover. It doesn't drop because we don't want it to drop. You want to keep giving it power and telemetry and thermal so that it can actually be heated. And so you have it stuck in there on purpose. And it's a very critical position because if you think about it, you can't drive with it. If you drive, you will harm the helicopter. if the helicopter doesn't deploy, we have serious problems with the areas that we want to go driving. And so you are tied to the helicopter, and we need to make sure that this goes without faults, right? And so the way that then we do proceed is, which is fantastic. And maybe it's also because I was flight director for that day. I just knew everything that was going to happen during that moment. But we pretty much cut the umbilical of the helicopter. So cut through another pyro firing, cut the umbilical of the helicopter, drop the helicopter. It's not too much that you drop it, but still, right? And then land on its own four legs. And then you better drive. You better drive because the helicopter has the batteries fully charged, but it won't last long if you don't use the solar panel. So if for some reason the drive doesn't go well, it's a big deal for the helicopter. If for some reason it doesn't deploy well, big deal for the rover and the helicopter. So we drop it, and then autonomously we drive. And so all of this is happening autonomously on the surface of Mars, and you're wondering, I hope this is working. And so because of the criticality of this activity, Sandy, we cut the umbilical, we drop it on the ground, and then we stick in a direct to Mars communication. So we were talking earlier about the delay. The delay goes through the orbiter, so it's much more delay. But in this specific one, because of the criticality, we open a window of 2 hours where we're looking at Mars during those 2 hours and saying, how you doing? Did it actually drop? Okay. If it did now, we're going to respond immediately, right? So we're watching this happen. Everything went well. We said go for the drive, and it autonomously drives, and then it gets exposed to the sun. And thank God that happened, because it would not have gone well if it didn't. But then later on, to your original question, we were getting closer and closer to now doing the first flight. And there's a series of tests that the helicopter team does, including going to 50 RPM, so revolution per minute, on the spinning the actual blades. And then they go to a high spin. And in the middle of the high spin, it aborted the sequence. The sequence was aborted because the helicopter flight software itself has a watchdog timer, where is making sure that the flight computer transitions from one mode, which is the pre-flight, to the flight mode. That transition didn't happen at the time that it needed to happen. So the watchdog timer killed the sequence to make sure that it will protect the helicopter. And everything was fine. But then after that, we had to look into what are the options. So I had the pleasure and the luck really to also work with the anomaly team on this, go down to the test bed, test what were the options that we were looking. One of the options that we were looking was to do a small change on the flight software for the helicopter. And then on the other option was to change the timing of the transition of the pre-flight to flight. And yeah, we figured both of those, and we tried option one, and option one worked. So option two, even though I worked on it, it's on the shelf. There's no need to use it. We won't come back to it. But it was just awesome to see that within a period of, I don't know, several days, not too many, we just worked around the clock to figure it out.
So I remember touring JPL several years ago, and they showed me the Mars yard in the back there where you can practice driving vehicles and practice software commands and hardware integration. I suppose you're using that Perseverance, but how do you go about either fixing things or doing something new that you haven't done yet, using that? I'm assuming you're still using the Mars yard.
Yeah, 100%. So on this whole story that I said we went and figured out, that's exactly where we went, Sandra. So we went up to the Mars yard, pull out the helicopter testbed part, connected it to the VSTV, which is the vehicle system testbed, which is the vehicle that you're talking about. So for the folks that are hearing us, is a replica, full-size replica, in many cases spare parts of Perseverance, and we have the same exact one for Curiosity. And so every time there's a problem, we go up there, power on it, and then drive it around or do whatever we need to do to reproduce the problem. So yeah, and so how do we deal with issues on Mars is also the crux of the question you're asking. Is we get all the data, we recognize that there's an anomaly. Thankfully, this mission has done so well. We haven't actually have as many anomalies as if I go back to Curiosity and compare it. It's just the helicopter one and some minor change that we had to do earlier, but that was it. And get the data, try to investigate why am I getting this data, ask the rover for more data, right? Before we actually go to the Mars yard. And then once we're in the Mars yard, we try to recreate the exact same state. But one of the things that is interesting about your question is that we can't recreate the same gravity, we can't recreate the same temperature, we can't recreate the environment. And in some cases, the issues are temperature based. And so it makes it tricky.
Yeah.
So, Deanna, sort of a big picture question. There's just all kinds of risk associated with doing a mission like this. You're millions of miles from Earth with an extremely complicated piece of equipment that's doing things for the very first time with a time delay. So, what have you learned about risk management from both your personal and professional experiences that you think would benefit others? And I reach all the way back to moving up from Colombia to operating a remote vehicle out there on Mars. What have you learned about risk?
I have learned, I like your question because it's twofold. I've learned from my experience that it's so important to recognize what is the thing that matters. Because sometimes at the end of the day, a bunch of stuff is happening, everything is occurring, but at the end of the day, there's one or two things that can make everything else go wrong. And so it's amazing to me to having had the experiences that I have had, that it does boil down to a few small things that can make everything else not work at all. And so it has become that thing for me, my fascination of like, I hear the problem, I hear everybody saying this, I hear where we're going, but that's not it. Like, yes, we need to fix that. Yes, we need to fix that, but that's not the main problem. That's not what's going to make you fall. So that, and then once you find out that it's that one or two thing that can make you fall, then you realize, okay, and the fixes that we have, yes, great, it's fixing 90% of all of those problems. What about this other two? And how do you actually convince yourself that those two things will get addressed? Because that's where the rubber meets the road. And so, I don't know. I think that what it has with respect to risk management is we do test the bejesus out of it. We test everything out of it. We come out with every single scenario, the good ones and the bad ones. And even with that, Mars is Mars, and it throws us a different rock that we didn't think about. But thankfully, we identify where we can fall, and that's the part that protects us every time.
And I think you've sort of alluded to this a couple of times today, and that is what we in naval aviation would call attention to detail. In other words, mastering every single possible detail, everything that could possibly go wrong, having a contingency for it. And then you sleep at night because you know that you can handle almost anything that comes your way. And then they throw a surprise at you and you can still handle it, right?
Yes. It's funny. I feel like when there's no, this is so horrible what I'm going to say, but it is great when everything is going nominal, but it's also so much fun when it's going off nominal, because it's also like, everybody comes in and it's like, no, I remember seeing this, and everybody's just throwing all their ideas in it. And it's not a repetition of ideas. Most of the time it feels more like everybody has something to contribute from their own personal, from their own experience, from everything they've done with the mission.
It gets back to that challenging part of engineering, is what you're talking about there. Hey, we're getting ready to wind down, so I'd like to shift just a little bit the conversation. You mentioned earlier that you were able to broadcast the landing of Perseverance live in Spanish. What kind of impact do you think that will have on other young people with dreams in the Hispanic community?
I really appreciate your question. It's a very important thing for me. What you're asking is, when I started to think about doing the broadcasting Spanish, which was like 7 years ago or so, and I kept going back to the media office, please let me do this, please let me do this. And then it happened with Perseverance. There were three things that I wanted to have, that I wanted to happen. The first one was, I wanted that moment, where the grandma comes. I have this very, very vivid scenes in my head where you're doing your homework. I'm doing my homework. I'm in my coffee table and my grandma goes by and says, "Mija, pay attention to that girl because you can do that." I also have this other scene of my parents coming back and then saying, "Look, if she can do it, you can do it too. Believe in yourself." And then the third thing of me seeing it on TV and saying, "Wow, there's so many jobs that I can have. I want to be that person. I want to be that person. I want to be that person." And recognizing that there's so many options. So I think, Sandra, the answer to your question is almost like that moment that I had in NASA Academy, but now in TV for everybody else to have it.
Yeah. And what you're speaking to, quite frankly, is the power of role models, right? Because people can look at you and go, wow, she did that, I can do that. And that is a supremely powerful statement to make to a community of people. So,
Yes.
yeah.
And and it's not only, here's a role model, it's not translated, it's not later, it's not when we got to you. No, it's now here, and you're hearing it with everybody else.
Exactly.
Well, Deanna, I can't tell you how proud we are, not only to have the opportunity to talk with you, but also we're just proud of you for all the barriers you've broken, the obstacles you've crossed, how you and your entire team have made this nation so proud of being able to do very difficult technical things very well that nobody else in the world can do. So we're very excited to have had the opportunity to speak with you, and we really wish you the best. And I guess our last question would be, you're going to be with Perseverance for a little while. Hopefully that little buggy will operate for many more years. But what do you dream of doing next?
There's a lot of things in my head that I want to do. I think that the three aspects of my life right now that are very interesting is promote education for minorities. The other one is I still haven't given up on my dream of being an astronaut. So hopefully things will line up from here on, and I will give it my best shot. And then on the last one is my family really pull it all together for me during the last 2 years. And I want to do my best at going back to them and showing them all the love and the gratitude that I have for having covered my back and allowed me to do all of this without feeling like I was missing out. They were there for me, and I want to make sure they know that.
That all sounds really awesome. And Deanna, I wish you luck in your pursuit. Astronaut's a great job, and I think you've got what it takes to be a great one. So good luck with all of that. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, guys.
Our guest has been Deanna Trujillo, the flight director for the Mars Perseverance rover and role model for young women everywhere. I'm Sandra Magnus.
And I'm Sandy Winnefeld. Many thanks to our sponsor, Dunkin. Dunkin fuels the people who take on every challenge head first. And we know the right kind of fuel that they need, an ultra-smooth Dunkin cold brew.
Join us back in the Adrenaline Zone next week for a new episode.
If you like our show, be sure to follow us and write a review and tell your friends about us.
And if you have a suggestion for an adrenaline seeker we might want to interview, visit our website at theadrenalinezone.com.